until we have a vaccine, we're going to have to be very, very careful about how we reopen, because we don't want to have that spike that the governor talks about. We want to make sure that anything that small outbreaks are very limited, that we can control them. And so that's why we talk about having more testing, more contact tracing, and why actually we opened the healthcare side first. We needed to get that part of our economy going so that we could have the best response that we could as we begin to open other parts of the economy. The response on resilience is, and you can think about it in several different ways, but you can think about it mechanical, right? How something bounces back. But in the discussion of resilience, it was always, how do we bounce back, but bounce back in a way that makes us stronger? And looking at resilience, I was actually the first resilience officer in this big network that came from a human services background. And my view was always, we are as strong as our most vulnerable population. And when you think about that, that's true, right? Any disaster that occurs, and it's playing out right now with COVID, it's always the most vulnerable that get hit first and worst. And we see that with populations that are older and more vulnerable from a physical perspective, but as well as then populations that are underserved, have always been underserved, and that can be race and poverty. Those are always intertwined with a disaster response. So that taught me some of that.
You know, the governor has really responded, Governor Andy Beshear in the state of Kentucky. However, the state is still lacking when it comes to testing, okay? I think it's less than 1% last I checked. So why is that important, and how are we going to tackle that in the Commonwealth?
So it is important. You have to, the goal is to test about 3% of the population. That really is the disease surveillance experts talk about that as a goal to really feel like you have a handle on what's actually happening within your population. And part of the problem has been we just haven't had enough supplies here. And that's the thing that's really frustrating, is a lot of it has to do with these little swabs that they stick way back up your nose. It's unpleasant, but we haven't had enough. And so it's true across the country. We haven't had enough production of some of the personal protective equipment that now we know is PPE, as well as some of the testing pieces. And so we think we're finally seeing, from a national perspective, that there is more of the materials that we need available. The thing about Kentucky is we've really had to depend on some of our local laboratories that have had to scale up very quickly. I think you've heard the governor talk about Gravity and Blue Water and Solaris. Those are all labs that existed in Kentucky, but probably had to bring their capacity up to be able to meet some of the needs that we have here. So we've seen incremental progress. I think we're starting to see bigger progress here within the last week, where we've gone from testing tens and hundreds of people to now testing thousands of people. We really need to get to the point where we're testing like 10,000 people, a day. So we're getting there, but we don't have the huge laboratories that some other states have. The other thing is, we haven't been a hotspot, and some of the materials have been allocated to those places that have had the large outbreaks. We started early with the social distancing, with the let's not visit the nursing facilities. We started when you look across the country, we were a very early state, and because of that, we haven't been a hotspot, and our reward has been that we haven't necessarily been allocated the supplies that we would need for widespread testing.
Kentucky Cabinet for Health and Family Services Secretary Eric Friedlander, thanks for taking time. I know you're a busy man, and we appreciate you sharing this information with our viewers. This is Coffee Near Me. I'm Barbara Deep, coming to you from my dining room. And remember, you can keep the conversation going. Who would you like to sit down and have a cup of coffee with? Thanks, Secretary. Appreciate it.
Thank you.